Good morning, everyone. I am Kevin Friedlander with the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our webinar series that the New Jersey Chamber of Commerce co-hosts regularly with NJM Insurance Group. Throughout the year, we will continue to cover many key topics for entrepreneurs and small business owners, really topics for all size businesses. This one you are attending today is entitled AI for Business, Practical Tools to Save Time, Boost Productivity, and Grow. Let's get started. Artificial intelligence is transforming how businesses operate, helping companies improve efficiency, enhance marketing, strengthen customer service, and streamline daily operations. As AI tools become more accessible, businesses of all sizes are finding new ways to save time, boost productivity, and remain competitive. Today's discussion will explore practical applications, emerging tools, and real-world strategies for using AI effectively. We have a lot to cover, so let's dive in. Also, note we will get to audience Q&A, so please put your questions in the chat box and we'll get to them later in the program. As always, I'd like to thank NJM Insurance Group for continuing to partner with us on these webinars. NJM has been a great corporate partner for the New Jersey Chamber and a great corporate citizen to the state of New Jersey. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Richard Hero, Digital Marketing Specialist for NJM Insurance Group. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you. NJM Insurance Group is pleased to be the exclusive sponsor of the New Jersey Chambers of Commerce's Small Business Webinar Series. As Kevin mentioned, this morning's webinar will focus on how to use artificial intelligence to save time, boost productivity, and grow. And that is actually something NJM itself has been really looking into over the past year with the substantial growth in AI-driven searches. So now let's get back to the program. It is my pleasure to turn the proceedings back over to Kevin with the New Jersey Chamber, and he will serve as our moderator.
Thank you, Richard and NJM Insurance Group for sponsoring the webinar. Now let's get to the panel discussion. Today we have a great lineup. We have Luca Panarelli, Partner Team Co-Leader, Digital Health Services for Witham. We have Amy Kirchhoff, Business Experience Director for the New Jersey Innovation Authority, and Ricardo Villanova, Partner AI and Intelligent Automation for EY. Ernst & Young. So let's get started by having each of the panelists introducing themselves and explaining why they are a subject matter expert on this topic. So Luca, why don't you get us started?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I'm a tax partner at Witham. Primarily, that's been in our technology and emerging growth practice, which houses a lot of our startups and small businesses. And, over the years, I think, maybe the last couple of years as AI has become more prevalent in everything that we do, at the firm and, our clients are doing as well, really just dove in to try and learn as much as I could about it. And I've come to lead Witham's AI adoption and integration within our tax practice.
All right. How about Amy?
Hi, yes, I'm the Business Experience Director here at the New Jersey Innovation Authority. And I have personal experience with AI. At my former place of business, I actually helped our Chief Operating Officer implement bringing an AI tool across the organization and focusing on places where we could improve efficiencies with it. And we leverage it quite frequently in a lot of different ways here at the Innovation Authority. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Ricardo.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm part of the AI team at EY, specialized in life sciences, applying AI all the way from R&D to commercial. I don't know if you guys saw just today on Wall Street Journal, there's an alignment between pretty much all the CEOs from AI talking about the danger of using AI to manufacture new molecules. And that's how AI is being applied, pretty much like being able to discover new drugs, new molecules, new proteins, and etc., all the way to commercial, inclusive of enabling functions like finance, IT, supply chain, etc. So what I do is apply AI across that whole end-to-end business cycle, On the left side, R&D accelerating clinical trials, accelerating drug discovery. On the other end, optimizing commercial functions and making companies more efficient. Great to be here.
Okay. So let's get the discussion going. So AI is everywhere right now, and it's the topic of so many news stories. You watch CNBC, that's all every segment's about right now. Now it's impacting. But today we're going to focus on small business, even medium-sized companies, how they can use AI. So if you're getting started as a business owner, you're a management team for a small company, where do you begin? Where do you get started with trying to implement AI into your company? And we could start with Luca.
Yeah, I think these tools that are available, at least in the general LLM sense, like, Copilot or ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, right? There's really no barrier to entry on any of these tools, right? You can get started without being an expert or a developer, for a pretty low subscription cost, depending on how many users you have. And I think, you get going and you just be curious and dive in. I think you start by, trying to automate the things that are tedious that you probably already don't like doing. Taking notes and drafting up emails. I think you can kind of get started there, start to build confidence in its abilities and capabilities, and move on to more complex work from that point.
Amy, you're nodding in agreement. What is your
I am
thoughts on
nodding in
this?
agreement. I think the advice is always right. Like, aim it at your back office first, and look for ways you can make your people more efficient. I think one of my pieces of advice is like, don't treat it like a conversation, especially if you're using one of these general tools. It's not a vending machine. You're not going to ask a question and get exactly what you want out. You can ask it to rewrite that sucker as many times as you want, and it will happily, well, not happily, it'll just go do it. So it's not going to get frustrated. It's not going to get tired. I think I do tend to recommend trying for the paid services. You will notice a difference between what you can get with a paid service and what you can get with the free service. There is a difference. It is worth playing with all of the general tools, I think, to find out how they work differently. The kind of answers they give will be slightly different. You will find one will be more verbose than another, for example. That may suit your style better. So those are my little bits of advice there. But yeah,
Okay.
pick your gnarliest, most frustrating problem and ask it for help.
Right. And Ricardo, it sounds like you're doing some really high-end stuff there at EY, but if you're a small business owner, mid-sized business owner, how would you recommend they get started?
Yeah, well, I think one thing that is very important is to understand the objective of AI, how your intention and what's your ambition when it comes to AI. But I think we've learned how to start in a very practical way. I think the best way is because as you implement AI, you're going to be also increasing AI literacy. So those both things they go together. And one good way that we learned is first with the individual productivity, as Luca was talking about. If you apply Copilot, there are very, very simple vanilla versions of AI that can support our daily operations, like with Excel, with Outlook, with Teams, and etc. They they can easily be adopted to a point where now every meeting you have the transcript automatically done. You have when you're preparing a document, you can have Copilot working with you. So that's a very good beginning. It comes with a problem though, because what happens is if you don't have AI literacy, people sometimes don't understand the risks of dealing with AI. And then what we've seen several times is like we start with Copilot in your own subscription, which is protected. So you're not revealing any knowledge, you're not revealing any no public material information. But then people sometimes they go to a public chat GPT and they start having conversation and exchange data in that public area. So a second step that is very important, in my opinion, is you go with Copilot to drive productivity up, but in parallel, you create like the equivalent of ChatGPT or Gemini within your own company. So you block the public ChatGPT and you create a white labeled version for your own company. So then they can have access to agents and etc. in that space, which is going to be safe because it's going to be protected in your own subscription. Those are the I think very, very interesting two steps, because on one side you have personal productivity. On the other side, you have the ability to deal with agents. We're going to be talking about agents in a second, but you have the ability to work with agents in a way that in a place where you can share and exchange confidential and proprietary information with no risks of them being in a public environment like ChatGPT.
So we're using ChatGPT here at the Chamber to do some stuff. But in the course of our first few minutes here, I've heard you rattle off like 3 or 4 different products to use. So once again, if you're let's focus on like, the products. If you're a small business, Copilot, ChatGPT, Gemini, how do you choose which product to use? Amy?
So
And what are the best start products?
There's two styles of products, I think. Some of the products our small businesses are already purchasing and using have AI built in. QuickBooks, for example, has Intuit Assist. That's an AI tool, and they've built it within QuickBooks. So there is that style of AI. And take advantage of the AI you are already paying for, because it is in the tools you are already subscribing to or purchasing. And then you have been hearing us rattle off the names of some of the big large language model players. And so that includes OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, Microsoft's Copilot, Google's Gemini. I'm probably missing others. And these are really big models trained on all of the content in the world. Like everything written on the internet has been fed into these models to train them. And these are the ones we're sort of familiar with as the chatbots. You go talk to them. And I am not going to tell you which one to use. I think you should go try them all. Spend $20 for a month for a number of subscriptions and try them. You will find that they are different. So Claude tends to go a little long in its answers, and that might suit your style. ChatGPT tends to be a little bit more brusque, and so if what you want are really short bullet points, that might be a better choice. These differences, for the most part, in my experience, tend to be a little stylistic, and so you just may find that one works better for you and your services than the other. Those of us who like to play will chase the biggest, newest model to see how good is the new one. And so, top of the leaderboards is ChatGPT 5.5 right now. But, Anthropic just released Claude 4.7. And that can be fun to chase. But in general, the top models are pretty similar. They're trying very, very hard to stay equivalent in terms of, I don't want to say intelligence, that's not the right word, capabilities.
Okay. Luca, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'd probably stay with the ecosystem you're familiar with, right? So if you're using Outlook and Teams, right, Copilot's probably going to be the best answer for you. It integrates directly with all those tools. If you're using Gmail and Google Sheets, Gemini is probably going to be a better option. I think that's a good way to get started, get familiar with the tools. They're already, built in, like, Amy was kind of saying, right, to all those Outlook, all those applications. So I think that's a good place to get started. And then, you may find that Claude is the superior tool, right, for your specific use case or business line, which you can start to explore as well. But that would be a good first step, I think, in my opinion. Just stick to the ecosystem that you're already, using.
Okay. Ricardo, let's switch topics a little bit and just, if you're a small business owner and you're looking to implement AI in your company, and how do you decide which tasks should be automated and using AI? What areas of the company maybe you'd get the most benefit from, like whether it's marketing or customer service? How do you decide what area of the company to get started in?
Yeah. So I think order to cash is one of the most interesting areas to use AI in general, because once you streamline order to cash, regardless of being SAP, combined with Salesforce, whatever the ecosystem you have, when you agentify order to cash, you leave zero room for revenue leakage. So what happens is you all the way from the order to the billing and then the collection, you can create a whole agentification, meaning you're gonna on top of your ERPs, you're gonna have an integration layer and then an orchestration layer with AI agents operating every single step of the process, not people. Meaning you're gonna have experts, agents that are experts in critical points of order to cash. Like, for instance, you have an agent that is an expert in customer master data. You have an agent that is an expert in POs, agent that is an expert in contracts, and agents that are experts in billing, etc. What happens with that first step is that you pretty much are going to reduce your disputes to a minimum because it will always be billing correctly, regardless of how intricate the contracts are, because the communication between those agents is going to be very, very. There's a protocol called MCP, so the agent is going to be using that protocol to communicate, and it's going to be like this. If I'm the billing agent, I'm going to connect with the contract agent, say, hey, what are the conditions here? Do we have a PO? And then I talk to the PO agent, and everything connects like at speed of light, pretty much. And then I bill those clients, my clients, correctly. So that's going to reduce disputes. That's potentially going to also reduce bad debt as well. And you're going to have a way better accounts receivable management that in the end is going to generate better DSO, better free cash flow, and etc. So it just streamlines a very, very important part of every single business. That's, in my opinion, the first one. You can then expand that to collections later. You can have like literally agents calling people or sending emails to people, regardless of the language. Like nowadays, agents can speak like up to 44 languages and they can move, mid conversation from English to Spanish to Italian, whatever. And so it's very humanistic. You can expand that to collection. That's so order to cash, in my opinion, is the first one. The second one is related to customer service, especially if you have a contact center. You can apply voice AI nowadays, and pretty much agentify like the contact center in a way that you eliminate IVR. There's no like when your client calls you, like your contact center, there's not gonna be like press one, press two, three anymore. It's gonna be hello, my name. How can I help? And then AI is gonna just say, you're gonna ask to AI your inquiry, and AI that agent is gonna be connected to what's called a semantic layer, and it's gonna solve your problem in whatever language right there, with no need for humans, unless the person asks for a human. Then there's a transition. But I think those order to cash is the first one because it reduces SG&A a lot, but also eliminates or minimizes the risk of revenue leakage. And then you have a better accounts receivable management and etc. And the second one is the contact center for customer care, because you were able not only to reduce costs quite a lot, I would say in half, if you have a contact center now, in half, but also there's a trend to increase NPS, which measures the quality of the interaction by at least 10 points. Those are potentially the first ones, I think.
Okay. Amy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think for many of our small business owners, starting by trying to get help for some of your back office things will be really helpful. If you focus on mundane and rote things that you think you can get help with and play to AI strengths. So AI is really good at words and it's really good at coding right now. So anything that's about writing or editing, summarizing, drafting, wrangling data, those are really, really good first, like, I need to try this out and see what it can do candidates. Maybe two examples. I recently was struggling with my calendar and I took screenshots of the next, 4 weeks, made a list of all the people I have to talk to weekly, every other month, every other week and monthly, and the list of meetings I can't move. This is with my boss, it can't be moved. Fed it all into Claude and said, I need focus time. I need you to rejiggle this so that I have hours of time together. And it did. It created me a schedule that has, about 6 hours of focus time across the week. Even gave me lunch every day. Didn't even ask for that. I got lunch every day in my schedule. If you are really, really new to this space, starting with something like that, relatively, I could do that with a pen and paper and jiggling it around. Another thing they're really good at is deep research. So, for example, another true example, we're looking at permitting platforms, software that you can install, that state governments can install to help manage the permitting workflow. There's a gazillion of them out there, and it would take me weeks to do that research to find them all. And I can ask any one of the big LLM tools, go do deep research on this, and I want to report. And I'm not going to get what I need first, but I'm going to iterate a couple of times and did get to a solid draft that I can then edit. So I think that type of stuff, especially for people who are really new, who haven't done anything at all in this space, can really start to show you the power and get your juices thinking about how it can be applied to your own business.
All right. Luca, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think I think a good first step, you can take inventory of the tasks that you're doing, right, on a daily, weekly basis, right? What are the things that are really tedious, that you're not looking forward to, that, take a lot of your time? And I think you start there. You don't necessarily need to be an expert, in order to create an agent or automated process entirely. You can just use the AI, one of these tools that we're talking about, as a strategic partner, right? Like, here's a task I spent a lot of time on. How can I possibly, look to reduce it or automate it or use you to help, right? I think you can use it as a strategic thought partner. Even if you don't have the answer, or if you're looking at an LLM that, not really understanding where to start, you can ask it simple questions like, how do I do this? Or, what do you think I could best use you for? This is my business, give it some context and, just go from there. Like, just have a back and forth, plain English conversation with it, the same as you would with a business consultant.
All right. And training, you got to get your employees up to speed on how to use these tools. So what's the best way to train employees? And, well, I have a follow-up question, but let's start with training. So, Ricardo?
It's super easy, guys. I think it's super easy. I think the best first way is to create some sort of an AI masterclass where you cover the concepts, like you open the hood and explain like all the flavors of AI, what's machine learning, what's deep learning, what's an LLM, what's generative AI, what's agentic AI, and now what's physical AI. And also, there's so many platforms that can teach like the basics, like those learning platforms like Udemy and etc. With like a training that sometimes is like $7, $15. You can learn a lot, like hands-on learning. That's one area. I think masterclass is one area that gives you like the overarching perspective. It brings the technical knowledge of what it is and how it works. It also brings something related to compliance and the legal/ethics part of applying AI, so you don't get in trouble. It also talks about misconceptions and how to, like, for instance, data doesn't need to be perfect, and how to have an AI ready data. And lastly, it talks about responsible AI, right? How to craft an AI journey that provides you enough protection, against risks and against societal problems, like with your brand and etc. And you have to control, you have to have documentation to control bias, you have to have transparency in your models, depending on the size of the implementation. There's something related to fairness you have to also control. And also, pretty much now, with I don't know if you guys heard about Mythos from Anthropic, but let me just connect the dots here. Mythos is an LLM. It's a large language model from Anthropic that is going to be launched in July. It's already available for some companies, and it's an expert in finding breaches that they can explore in software, right? So with that type of new technology, you have to be careful as you develop your own AI agents. You have to be careful how you develop those agents because there are going to be other AI components available that can test your agents to see if they can find a breach and explore the breach. So responsible AI is also something that it's important to learn, and the mechanics of a master class, like in a day, like in 7 hours, pretty much you cover those things. So leadership will know how to operate in that environment and how to prepare. There are four types of personas in that type of approach. You have leadership, like C-level. You have compliance and legal. Depending on the size of the company, you're going to have board as well as a third persona, and then have everybody else in a kind of online web learning platform. So that's the masterclass. And the second, I think, avenue that is important to explore is that avenue where once you've selected your platform, your technology, you're going to be actually learning how to develop your own agents, your own models. Because right now, the technical knowledge, it's not technical anymore. It's pretty much like English. In the majority of the cases, you can develop your own agent just with pure English, plain English. As long as you know how to organize thoughts and the whole thing with prompt engineering, you can do a lot of things with AI. I think those are the two angles that I would explore first.
So what, to be clear for our attendees, how do you find these master classes again? Because it sounds like there's a lot of content to be covered in them.
Yeah.
Is there any one specific place, or do you go to your local college? Is it all online? Is it other people offer these courses?
I think you're gonna have to work with like a close by college or a consulting company that you have a trustworthy relationship. It's not something that is available online, but universities, consulting companies, they provide that as well.
Okay, thank you. Luca, any thoughts on the training aspect of this?
Yeah, and I think even even stepping outside formal trainings, I think there's a great deal of content available online. Even various social media platforms, you can find people that are sharing use cases constantly and walking you through exactly how to make it happen for yourself. You can search for your industry type or your business type, and there will probably be some sort of influencer or adjacent person kind of walking you through different use cases that are powerful. And from a training perspective, I think as Ricardo was saying a little bit, the actual interaction with these tools is pretty simple, right? I think if you're just curious and you start playing with them, I think you'll find your way pretty quickly. And it will be a ramp up of capabilities, right? You'll understand how they start to work, and you'll just start applying them to more and more areas of your business. Where I think the training is more important is in that responsible AI usage, right? I think if you're giving the tool to staff, you need some training on how they can use this properly, right? Not blindly trusting results, right? Like having the outputs vetted, by a human in some capacity. That's where I think you can get into trouble without proper training, right? If you automate too much of the process and kind of remove yourself. When I find that happening on my team with, individuals relying too much or sending me things to review that are obviously, that have the questions at the bottom because they just copied and pasted it out of an LLM. If you're removing yourself from the process, you are, effectively, automating your own job, right? If you're not participating in the process of that output in terms of review or using a judgment, then there's no need for you in the middle. right? So like you have to get familiar with using the tools, using them responsibly, and that's probably where I'd focus more of my training, especially if you're going to make a tool available to some of your employees and staff.
So Luca, Ricardo, you both said you could get in trouble. You got to do this responsibly. What kind of trouble can you get into here? What's the reputation or liability for the company if you don't do this properly? What are we talking about here? So
Yeah,
I don't know, Amy, if you have any thoughts on this, or if you want to.
I think my advice is that all of the laws and regulations still apply. So if you have a contract with an NDA in it, don't upload it to an LLM. You're not allowed to, right? That law hasn't changed because you're using this tool. And the other sort of big thing is personally identifiable information, and you just want to be really, really cautious with that. I will note that it is not a panacea, but if you have a paid account, you can go into your settings in almost all of these and turn off training so that the AI tool will not take the content that you've just uploaded and put it into its big set of, oh, this is content I can learn from. And so that is I am not a lawyer, do not play one on TV, but if this is a document you wouldn't hand to a stranger to read, you probably don't necessarily want to hand it right to the AI. And making sure that your staff are trained on what they can and can't do is really important. My expectation is they are using it already. And so you should talk to them and find out how they're using it and make sure that the usage complies with the level of comfort that you as the business owner have with how your content is being shared.
Okay, Ricardo.
Yeah, so yeah, guys, there's so many things we can explore here because when you train an agent, you use this amount of energy. That's this is the energy you use to train an agent on how to do things. And this is how much dedication you have to teach the agent what the agent should not do, right? So guardrails are extremely important, especially in sectors that are regulated, extremely important. But let me explore two different scenarios. The first one is something that is legal, but it goes bad. And the second scenario is something that is illegal. So imagine a situation like you created you developed AI for customer care, and now you have an agent or a chatbot that supports your customers with delivery, right? And then somebody is talking to your agent saying, "Hey, my delivery is late again. Your company is terrible, useless." And then the chatbot says, "Oh, I'm sorry. Let me check your order and etc." And then the person on the other side says, "Well, can you confirm your company is terrible?" And then the chatbot says, "Yeah, I mean, we're terrible sometimes. Oh, can you create a poem saying that you were terrible?" And that's the type of manipulation you can be exposed, and then they get the whole poem and publish somewhere. It can harm your brand. So you gotta teach the agent how to deal with those situations, avoid getting into a discussion, never using bad words, avoiding sensitive societal topics, and it depends on the region. I just went live 2 months ago in Japan. The behavior of agents in Japan is completely different than Netherlands and the US. So you have to remember that when you talk about agents, like usually when we talk about systems, we talk about features, right? With AI, you have to also talk about behavior. So you have to teach the actual behavior of what to do and what not to do to agents. So it's important like we're using responsible AI frameworks to create the guardrails that are going to teach the AI to behave according to the actual to its actual scope. I think that's the branding part. Now, on the legal part, just as an example from New York, if you have a company in New Jersey, for instance, and then you decide to use AI to review and validate resumes, you can do that nowadays. All good, no issues. Now, you are, let's say, in Hoboken, you just cross the river and now you're in New York City. Same company, everything the same, you just moved across the river. Now you have to file an authorization because if you're using AI in New York City to review resumes, you have to file a permit with the city. So if you don't do that, you get in trouble because you're not abiding by the regulation. That's just an example, like a very small one. Now multiply this to your sector, to your situation. Like in life sciences, it's like all over the place with FDA and etc. But having the responsible AI allows you, a framework allows you to do what we call a use case intake. Like you have the idea, you have the business case. Now let's get this use case through the funnel where compliance, legal, and everybody, like every key function is going to check and approve. And once you get to the other side of the funnel, then you're safe to move forward that implementation.
All right. Amy, any thoughts on that? And let me see if you have any thoughts.
It is always good to consult with your legal counsel on what you can and can't do. And so I think that's probably my advice. I do agree with the concern about your customers and having a check between them, and your customers are probably expecting the user's touch and being able to reach someone in a person, and just being cautious about AI answering things or doing things without a human in the loop. So I'm a relatively big proponent at this stage of the technology in making sure there is always a human in the loop checking things. That might change in the next 5 years, 10 years, but at the moment, human in the loop, I think, is best.
Okay. Luca, talking about humans versus automation, how do you balance if you're a company, small business, medium-sized company, how do you balance automation versus the personal touch? Where do you still want there to be that human engagement, and where do you want to just turn things over to AI? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we just talked about in that last section was a lot of internal, responsible AI usage and how to use it appropriately within the business to accomplish certain tasks. There's another part to that question about how do you interact with customers and clients, or if you're a service provider, how do you provide those services responsibly and in a way that maintains that human element, that people want, right? The last 10 years, just automated call centers have frustrated a lot of people, right? People like having a human on the other end of their questions, and what AI has done, what these tools have done is democratize intelligence, right? Everyone has access to them. Everyone can become intelligent on anything they want using these tools. What it hasn't replaced is trust and expertise in a particular field. Having the ability to, work with somebody and explain it and be nuanced because you've seen it a million times against other clients, similar clients or customers. So, balancing automation with, maintaining that human touch is probably going to be one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face over the next 3 to 5 years. And, I don't know that there's a clear answer on how to do that, but I think what you need to do responsibly is make sure there's a human in the loop, like Amy was, saying. It's fine to automate a particular process or, an end result, right? But ultimately, there's got to be a human that vets it, reviews it, and is available to maintain that relationship with your customer or client. Obviously, that can vary depending on your business type, but in the service, if you're a service provider, maintaining that relationship is going to be the most important part of the process moving forward.
And I keep reading a lot of articles where, some employees are fearful that AI is going to do their job and maybe take their job away. And there's lots of articles about how some jobs are maybe disappearing due to AI. But then there's other articles, and I hear CEOs talking about that there'll still be many jobs, but people will just need different types of skills at companies, and maybe some of the jobs that people did will just be replaced by other jobs. So any thoughts on how this will affect the job market in the near term versus long term. Ricardo, any thoughts on that?
100%. So it's a dilemma that we're going to be seeing, I think, over the next. We're already seeing it, but we're going to be seeing even more. It's a dilemma because for us to adopt AI at scale, we have to recognize our own limitations and as humans to deal with a vast amount of data, to work 24/7. Nobody can do that. And also to deal with decision making at speed, considering all sorts of information. So once we recognize the limitation, it's obvious that a person uh, expanding their capabilities with AI is going to be way more productive than a person without those additional capabilities. And that's where I think the market's going to be going, especially now with the AI native this new generation that is coming to the workforce. They are AI natives, and everything they do is connected to AI in a way, of shape, or form. So a person with AI is going to be way more relevant in the market than a person without AI, regardless of the pretty much like in every single space and profession. Yeah, I'm a volunteer firefighter in my village where I live in New York, and I'm seeing already that kind of discussion how firefighter can be better with using AI and etc. So this is gonna happen everywhere, and that's I think we're gonna be seeing that the people that are avoiding AI are going to be way less productive, and that's going to be dangerous for them. People with AI are going to be way more productive and more interesting to the market.
Amy, thoughts on that?
I so the train didn't disrupt commerce, or it aided commerce in the end, and the television didn't rot our minds. I am not a believer that AI is going to take away our jobs. I heard a great phrase yesterday that AI is not going to take our jobs. We have been doing the job AI could do, right? That there are things we're going to get AI to do now that are going to free people up to do more substantive and creative and strategic work. So I am hard pressed to see a sort of science fiction future at the moment, an immediate future where AI is just like eating up all of our jobs. I do worry a little bit about entry level jobs and what happens if we aren't hiring entry level people, because that is what AI is good at right now, and what that means in 10 years when we need mid-level people and we didn't hire the entry-level people. But I think we're just in a moment of flux. But I'm not particularly concerned. I haven't seen any proof that jobs are going to be eaten and taken away fully by AI. I think they'll change though.
Right. Okay. And we actually do have one question in the chat, and I don't know who can answer this one. Can you summarize the significance of tokens and the cost involved with increased usage? Ricardo is nodding right now, so do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yes. There's something called FinOps, which is financial operations. This is how you predict what's going to be the demand for tokens in a given use case, and then you can predict what's going to be the cost of AI for that particular use case. So, I mean, to the actual question, the significance of tokens is huge because AI is the way you pay for AI is completely different from the way you pay for licensed technology, right? AI is paid by usage. So the more tokens you consume, the more you're going to be paying. And that can really break a business case and the ROI completely because depending on the model you use for a particular use case, the cost can be double the size. Because if you think about let's say just OpenAI as an example, there are several categories of models that you can use to a particular use case. And I think the secret, or maybe the best practice is, it's important to use the least expensive model that can fulfill that use case, right? So when you're creating the business case, you're looking for an ROI. And if you're always using the best model with things like chain of thought and etc., it's going to be way more expensive than the other one. So the significance of tokens is it can go from like $10,000 per year to $1 million. That's the difference. So you gotta when you design your use case, you're gonna be defining what model you're gonna be using, from whatever, like from the cloud that makes more sense to you. It can be Azure, OpenAI, it can be AWS, it can be Google, and you're gonna be predicting the demand of tokens. Like you're gonna be literally modeling the future. Like this is how much I expect my users or myself or my whole company to interact with this AI model. And then you translate that demand into tokens, and you translate that number of tokens per year into dollars. That's your number. It's pretty much your OpEx is going to be uh, anchored in that number. And given that that's a new cost, you have to consider that in your ROI. Like if you're taking costs out, or if you're expecting top line growth, you have to understand that this is your baseline. The point is, it varies, right? Sometimes the model is so good and adoption is so easy that people just jump into that model, and then your demand was expected to be here, and now it's here. And then you have to react very fast. That's what's FinOps for. It's going to be monitoring that fluctuation, like saying, hey guys, our demand is like 10 times higher than we expected. So we got to do something. Otherwise, our cost is going to be 10 times higher as well, which is going to break the whole business case maybe sometimes. So what can we do? Should we limit tokens? Should we change the architecture? Should we change the model? Should we encourage people to use in a different way? So go with the training and etc. But to the question, it's extremely significant in terms of the cost, because that's pretty much where the cost is, right? The consumption of tokens is the cost. But most importantly than understanding the significance of that is to prepare yourself to manage that. And the way you manage that is called FinOps, which predicts the cost and also monitors the cost, re-engaging the engineering team in case you have to review the architecture so you control the cost better.
Thank you. So I hope that was a very thorough answer. So hopefully that question was answered for the person that asked it. Luca, how do you get involved in AI, you're implementing it in the company, you're using it in maybe for marketing or customer service or the different things that we discussed. How do you measure success that you're that it's working properly for you, that it's saving you money, improving things? So how is success measured?
Yeah, I think there's two clear ways you can measure success, and obviously, time savings is a material one, right? Like if you're able to cut down a process materially, that's kind of the easier one to track, right? If you save 40 hours a week on this particular task, for some of your team members, times their salary, right? You can kind of figure out how to measure success from that perspective in your ROI. I think where we are today, one of the more common successes that we've had is really from a place of quality management or quality improvement. Being able to be a second set of eyes on reviewing something, being able to, take a task and, ask the AI to think of what you might have missed, things that you didn't consider, in your analysis, making you a better thought partner for your clients or customers. I think that's where a more likely ROI or success comes at this stage. Because the ROI from time savings, they're there. I think you sort of get to a point in the business where you start to plateau that, where maybe there are really tedious and time-consuming tasks that you've automated, and you've just become very efficient, right? To where there's not that much more juice to squeeze out of it. And so I would look at it from those two terms. Focus on improving quality, right? And, the ROI from time savings, I think, is just sort of a natural, easier modality to track.
Amy, measurement.
I agree with Luca. I think time savings at the moment is probably one of the best measurements. Thinking about how you make that more objective and less subjective can be a useful process to ensure that you're not spending too much time iterating with the AI. When but In general, yeah, I think I second Luca's answer.
Okay, so both of you said at the moment, that's how you measure success. So that brings me to the next question of where we're headed. And a lot of people say with this AI journey we're on, that we're like still in the first inning. So what will things look like 5 years from now, 2 years from now? And let's try to focus on small to medium-sized companies. So what will success look like 5 years from now, Ricardo?
Oh boy,
Do you have a crystal ball you could look
many
into?
things. Yeah, so many things going to change. I was having a conversation with my wife about going on an RV trip, and she said, "Hey, our kids are so young." I told her, "Look, hey, look at the world outside, like the way the world is right now. This is going to change in 10 years completely. So let's go on an RV right now where we have the nature and etc. Because it's like every year that goes by, it's 10% less time with with the way we know the world. For everybody, for small companies, medium, big companies, physical AI is coming. Like humanoids, bots are really coming. It's the combination of AI and the actual hardware. I was in March, I was in San Jose, California at the NVIDIA conference. I got surrounded, I was very early in the conference and I got surrounded by 6 bots trying to engage me in a conversation because I was the only one walking down the street. So this is happening. I would say,
So we have like 85 people on this webinar right now. So you're saying 5 years from now, the majority of these companies will have a robot working alongside humans with AI implanted in them. Is that what you're saying?
maybe not 5, but 10. In 10, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, in 10. I think right now in physical AI, we're at the same stage we were in the 90s when the Nokia cell phones started to show up. And this is going to move so fast that in that space. But between now and maybe 2033, 2031, it's going to be a lot about agentification. We're going to have our own agents. Everyone, what people say is that every one of us, every one of humans are going to be managers. We're going to be either managing people or managing agents. So I'd say between now and 2030, 2031, it's going to be a big agentification. Everything is going to be agents, like AI agents, maybe inclusive of our refrigerator in the future. And at some point, we're going to be seeing adoption of physical AI, humanoids and bots in everything we do, from warehouses to manufacturing to grocery stores, and even our houses. People talk about the 3 Cs, cleaning, cooking, and childcare. This is potentially also coming to our houses, individually speaking. And but that's, I think, it's going to be the next step in terms of AI.
Luca?
Yeah, I think the pace of change is so tremendously fast at this point that, everything's becomes outdated very quickly, and where things are headed, is incredibly hard to predict. But I do agree. I think agentic workflows right now, having agents that are, created for specific tasks, or certainly, and then in that 2 to 3 year window of where we'll be, right, having multiple, agents that do specific tasks for us. Um, you know, if you've used Cowork, which is part of, the Copilot practice, or Claude, in general, the enterprise version of that, some of those tools are blowing my mind, constantly. Like I said in parts of my answers earlier, being curious and just asking it to do different things. And it's pretty consistently, blowing my mind where, as a general tool, as a tool that can do everything, I think it's becoming better and better. So I do think there's a world where maybe agents become obsolete because the general tools are getting so good that they don't need to be trained on a specific task. They'll just know how to do them, regardless of what you ask them. So yeah, and I think physical AI for sure is on the cusp of breaking out. I think that'll be the next iPhone moment that we'll have here. Humanoid or different types of formats. But yeah, we will probably all have one in the house, in the next 5 to 10 years, and every business will probably need it for certain tasks. So, it's impossible to predict, right? I think it's been so hard to stay on top of this, right? And every time you feel like you're a little bit caught up, Claude releases 4.8 and it's dramatically different than the past version, and you're kind of starting at zero again. So, yeah, it's a combination of Ricardo's answer, I think is I would agree with as well.
Great. So we are out of time. This conversation went by very quickly. I want to thank Luca, Amy, Ricardo for an informative discussion. Your insights touched on a lot of important issues. Hopefully today's program helped webinar participants to better navigate these transformational times. And I'd like to once again thank our sponsor, NJM Insurance, for continuing to partner with us on this series. So with that, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day. And just one quick reminder, next week in Trenton, we have our open house at the State Museum. We have over 350 people registered already. So hopefully you could go to our website, njchamber.com, and register, and look forward to seeing you next week. So once again, thank you to Luca, Amy, and Ricardo. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.